You know what's absolutely mind-blowing? There's a recording that's been hidden from the public for decades, a conversation with Edgar Cayce, the man they called the sleeping prophet, where he reveals exactly what happens when you die. And I'm talking about specifics here, not vague spiritual fluff. If you're watching this and you've lived long enough to see friends pass away, to feel your own body changing, then what I'm about to share with you could completely transform how you think about what's coming next. Because according to Cayce, death isn't what we've been taught to fear. Before we dive deep into this forbidden interview, hit that like button if you're ready to hear some truths that might challenge everything you thought you knew about dying. And make sure you subscribe because this kind of content doesn't stay up forever. Here's what happened. Scholars recently transcribed this lost recording where Cayce speaks with stunning clarity about the moment of death. And listen, this isn't some religious sermon or New Age fantasy. This is a man who spent his life in documented trances, accessing information that medical doctors still can't explain, telling us exactly what consciousness experiences when it leaves the body. The first thing that'll shock you, Cayce says death feels like waking up from the deepest sleep you've ever had. There's no pain, no confusion, no terrifying tunnel of light. Instead, there's this crystal-clear awareness that you're still you, just operating on a completely different level of existence. Think about that for a second. All those sleepless nights worrying about pain, about struggling, about gasping for breath, Cayce claims none of that touches your actual consciousness. The spirit, he says, detaches so gently that many souls don't even realize they've crossed over until they try to interact with the physical world and notice nobody can see them anymore. But here's where it gets really interesting. Cayce describes what he calls a life review, but it's nothing like the Judgment Day scenario that's been drilled into our heads by traditional religion. According to him, your consciousness travels through every significant moment of your life in seconds, not to be punished or condemned, but simply to understand. Every person you hurt, every act of kindness you showed, every moment of genuine love, it all comes flooding back as pure sensation. No excuses, no hiding behind justifications. Just the raw truth of what you created in the world. And here's the kicker. This isn't imposed by some angry deity sitting on a cloud. Your own soul guides this process because it genuinely wants to comprehend the impact of its choices. This completely destroys the fear-based model of heaven and hell that's controlled people for centuries. Cayce saw no fixed destinations, no eternal punishments. Instead, he witnessed states of consciousness that we create through our actions, emotions, and intentions while we're alive. That changes everything about how we should be living right now. Let me tell you about the reunion part, because this is where even the most skeptical people start to get emotional. Cayce consistently reported that after the soul detaches from the body, loved ones who have already passed appear to welcome the newly transitioned soul. We're talking about parents, spouses, children, even close friends, all there, waiting. But get this, recognition doesn't happen through physical appearance. It's pure feeling, pure knowing. That means the grandmother you remember as old and frail might appear as the vibrant young woman she once was, or she might not have a form at all. What matters is that unmistakable essence that makes them who they are. For those of you who have already buried most of the people you care about, this vision offers something incredibly powerful. You're not walking into death alone. There's literally a welcoming committee of everyone who mattered to you, and they've been waiting. Now, here's something that'll blow your mind about time on the other side. Cayce said time doesn't work the same way once you're no longer bound by a physical body. A single moment can feel like an eternity, while years can pass in what seems like seconds. The soul moves by intention, not by the clock. This explains why people often report feeling the presence of deceased loved ones even decades after they've passed. On the spiritual plane, they might have just stepped away for what feels like a moment. That sudden warmth you feel in your chest when you think about someone who's gone. Cayce would say that's not just memory, that's their actual presence, subtle but real, offering comfort. But let's talk about preparation, because this is where Cayce's message becomes intensely practical. He wasn't interested in religious rituals or last-minute confessions to earn divine favor. Instead, he emphasized cultivating inner peace, genuine gratitude, and conscious awareness of how we treat others. According to Cayce, your soul carries the vibration of what you've experienced and what you've made others experience. Not your bank account, not your achievements, not your reputation, but the actual emotional and spiritual energy you've generated through your choices. This means the moment of death should be approached as a conscious transition, not as something that just happens to you. He recommended that people, especially in their later years, honestly review their lives. Ask for forgiveness where it's needed. Offer forgiveness where it's been withheld. Express gratitude for the experiences that shaped you. And here's the crucial part. This isn't about pleasing some cosmic judge. It's about lightening your own spiritual load. Because everything you don't resolve here, you carry with you. In the spiritual realm, that weight doesn't disappear. It just becomes impossible to ignore. If you're finding value in this information, take a moment to share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes one conversation can dissolve years of fear and anxiety about what's coming. Cayce also addressed people who completely reject the possibility of life after death. Interestingly, he said these souls experience confusion when they first transition, not because they're being punished for their disbelief, but because they take longer to accept their new reality. They don't suffer, but they do struggle to understand why they're still conscious when they expected complete annihilation. In these cases, spiritual guides and family members work patiently to help the soul recognize its situation. This shows that belief doesn't change the fundamental process, but it can significantly affect how smoothly you experience the transition. That's why Cayce encouraged open, honest conversations about death, especially with older adults. Understanding what's coming doesn't just help you die better, it helps you live better. Less fear, less resistance, more clarity about what actually matters. One of the most powerful aspects of Cayce's revelations concerns the continuity of relationships. He completely rejected the idea that death severs all connections. True love, he claimed, creates permanent bridges between the physical and spiritual realms. This doesn't mean departed souls are trapped here, constantly watching over us. Rather, when there's genuine attunement, a heartfelt thought, a sincere prayer, a vivid memory, communication becomes possible. Cayce described cases where spirits offered comfort, provided insights, or simply made their presence known to those they'd left behind. For elderly people carrying guilt about things left unsaid or undone, this offers tremendous hope. It means you can still express love, offer apologies, or simply acknowledge someone's impact on your life, even after they've passed. This knowledge doesn't just bring peace, it transforms how you approach your remaining time. Instead of simply waiting for the end, you can start living with more authenticity, more presence, more meaningful connection. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to create something that transcends physical death. Here's something that challenges a lot of religious teaching. Cayce insisted that no soul is ever abandoned, no matter how they've lived. Even people who have made terrible mistakes, who have caused harm, who have lost their way completely, all are welcomed and understood when they transition. The soul isn't judged by human standards of right and wrong. Instead, it's understood in its totality. Every pain that drove destructive choices, every moment of genuine caring, every struggle with circumstances beyond its control. Mistakes are seen as part of spiritual learning, not as grounds for eternal punishment. This led Cayce to describe a process where souls review their journeys and decide for themselves what needs to be adjusted in future experiences. His concept of reincarnation wasn't about karmic debt or cosmic punishment. It was about consciousness choosing to continue growing and learning until it reaches its full potential. For elderly people who feel they've run out of time to change or improve, this message is revolutionary. The soul isn't limited by the body's timeline. It continues, learns, evolves. Even after the last breath, there's still a path forward, still opportunities for growth and understanding and new beginnings. Comment below if this perspective on continuing evolution resonates with your own understanding of existence. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how this changes the way you think about your remaining time. Cayce described these new beginnings in beautiful detail. After transition, souls spend time in what he called a learning plane, where they review their choices, understand the full impact of their actions, and prepare for whatever comes next. There's no rushing this process, no external deadlines or pressure. Each soul moves at its own pace. Some remain longer in this reflective state, while others advance more quickly toward new experiences. Cayce compared it to a spiritual school where everyone follows their own curriculum based on what they need to learn. For seniors accustomed to a lifetime of deadlines, obligations, and external pressures, this offers profound relief. Knowing there's time, that no one is forced into anything, that everything continues with respect for individual pace and choice. This can completely transform the anxiety around dying. It also encourages using whatever time remains to begin this conscious reflection while still in physical form. The more aware you become now, the smoother your eventual transition will be. Cayce placed enormous emphasis on small actions and simple gestures. He said that a sincere apology, an unexpected act of kindness, a genuinely caring word carry tremendous weight in the soul's development. Many people think spiritual growth requires grand gestures or elaborate religious practices, but Cayce insisted that intention matters more than scale. The soul registers feelings and motivations, not appearances or public recognition. This teaching has immense value for people in their final years, because it shows that it's never too late to do something that truly matters. Sometimes a phone call, a written note, or a simple conversation can resolve an entire chapter of unfinished business. And according to Cayce, these resolutions travel with the soul, lightening its spiritual burden and illuminating its consciousness. Every gesture of truth and genuine care has the power to transform not just your remaining life, but your entire afterlife experience. Throughout the interview, Cayce emphasized that life after death isn't a matter of belief. It's a matter of experience. Just as you don't need to believe in gravity to be affected by it, you don't need to understand everything about spiritual transition to go through it successfully. What makes the difference is how consciously and authentically you live while you're here. Cultivating serenity, honesty, and genuine love prepares you in the most practical way possible. Cayce didn't offer magical formulas or guarantee a pain-free journey. He simply shared what he claimed to see, a continuation of existence with new possibilities for growth and connection. For elderly viewers who feel time accelerating, this vision serves as an invitation to pause, breathe deeply, reflect honestly, to release fear and embrace the understanding that consciousness continues, that every choice made with authentic intention builds a bridge to whatever comes next. One of the most profound insights from the interview concerns how we face death reflects how we've faced life. People who have lived with harshness, resentment, and fear often approach death with terror. Those who have learned to forgive themselves and others, who can laugh at their own mistakes, who have found value in simple pleasures, these souls tend to transition with much greater peace. Cayce stressed this isn't about religion or following specific doctrines. It's about consciousness, about the inner world you've cultivated throughout your life. The soul carries what it has built internally, not external accumulations or achievements, but the actual quality of awareness and caring you've developed. Nobody can change their past, but everyone can change how they relate to their past right now. For people in their golden years, this message offers tremendous power. There's still time to make peace with old wounds, to find meaning in difficult experiences, to transform regret into wisdom. Everything understood with genuine love becomes light on the soul's path forward. Cayce frequently distinguished between attachment and love, explaining that attachment binds and restricts while love liberates and expands. Often, by clinging desperately to people who have already passed or to possessions from bygone eras, we create barriers that actually hinder our spiritual development. True honor for someone who's died isn't keeping them trapped in our pain and longing. It's remembering them with gratitude, carrying forward what they taught us, and continuing to live with meaning and purpose. For elderly people who have lost spouses, children, or siblings, this distinction can be life-changing. Cayce suggested treating each good memory like a candle that illuminates rather than an anchor that drags you down. By releasing what no longer belongs to the present moment, you open space for a lighter, more authentic connection with those who have transitioned, not as someone who desperately holds on, but as someone who loves with maturity and confidence that genuine bonds transcend physical separation. Let me know in the comments if you've experienced this kind of loving release in your own life. How did it change your relationship with loss and memory? Among the most moving parts of the interview, Cayce discussed the unique mission of every soul. He believed absolutely nobody incarnates by accident. Every life, regardless of how ordinary or difficult it might appear, serves a specific purpose in the larger tapestry of existence. Sometimes this purpose isn't dramatic or publicly recognized. A grandfather who shares wisdom through stories, a woman who raises children with genuine love, a man who works with consistent honesty, all fulfill essential roles that ripple outward in ways they might never fully comprehend. Cayce said that after death, souls understand their purpose with startling clarity. When they realize they've accomplished what they came here to do, they experience profound peace. For elderly people who often wonder whether they've done enough or made sufficient impact, this revelation offers deep comfort. Not everything needs to be grand or newsworthy. The essential thing is living with authenticity and care. Even if your mission isn't yet clear, it continues until your final day. Every gesture still counts. Every thought still shapes the trajectory of your soul's development. Cayce pointed out that fear of death usually stems from fear of the unknown. He compared the experience to approaching a door that's always been visible, but that we've avoided opening. When we finally step through, we discover the space beyond isn't dark or empty, but filled with meaning and recognition. The soul, when leaving the body, goes through a moment of deep understanding. Everything suddenly makes sense. The mistakes and successes, the meetings and separations, the joys and sorrows all fit together like pieces of an enormous puzzle that's finally complete. For seniors who spend time questioning past decisions and wondering about roads not taken, this image offers tremendous comfort. Knowing that someday everything will make sense, that no experience was truly wasted, provides a type of peace that few words can convey. This is why Cayce insisted that life's end isn't punishment or loss. It's simply the next stage of something that's been progressing all along. Another remarkable detail from Cayce's description concerns the lightness souls experience when separating from physical bodies. He said the weight of flesh and bone disappears so naturally that spirits often don't realize they've detached until they attempt to interact with the material world and discover they're no longer visible or audible to the living. This account, echoed by countless people who have had near-death experiences, highlights an important truth. Death isn't a violent rupture or sudden break. It's a smooth transition, like falling asleep in one room and awakening in another. For elderly audiences, this explanation helps dissolve fear by replacing images of struggle and suffering with visions of gentle continuity. More than that, it reinforces the understanding that everything you've lived continues to be part of your existence. Cayce didn't promise miracles, but he offered logical consistency. If life is fundamentally about learning and growing, death can't possibly be an ending. It has to be the continuation of that process. Subscribe if you want more content that treats these profound questions with the respect and depth they deserve. In a final section of the interview, Cayce was asked what he would do if he knew he had only one day left to live. His answer was immediate and unadorned. He would give thanks. He would express gratitude for the opportunity to have lived, learned, and shared his experience with others. He added that gratitude is the most powerful emotion a soul can carry into transition. This simple statement reveals everything about what he believed makes for a good death. It's not about escaping or delaying the inevitable. It's about approaching the transition with consciousness, dignity, and appreciation. For seniors following this message, perhaps this is the most practical teaching of all. Even if your remaining days are few, they have immense value. It's still possible to forgive, to embrace, to smile, to understand more deeply. These choices change everything, because living with gratitude doesn't just transform your present experience, it transforms what comes after. A soul that departs in gratitude travels lighter into whatever awaits. And souls that travel light find clearer, more welcoming paths forward. Cayce emphasized that nobody needed to accept everything he said without question. He encouraged people to examine his visions with open hearts, but also with discernment and critical thinking. The most important thing, he insisted, was for each person to develop their own understanding of what it means to exist beyond physical form. He recommended reading, meditation, and quiet reflection. He said the more intimate your relationship with inner silence becomes, the easier you'll find it to comprehend the mysteries of consciousness and soul. This suggestion might seem simple, but it carries enormous impact, especially for people living in phases of increased solitude. For many seniors, silence is a constant companion. When used consciously, this silence can transform into a space for encountering what's most profound within yourself. Cayce didn't claim to possess absolute truth. He offered keys to understanding, and the most powerful key was this: whoever learns to be peaceful with their own silence walks confidently toward whatever comes next. In his final years, Cayce never retreated from the revelations he'd shared throughout his life. Even when criticized or attacked by skeptics, he remained committed to transmitting what he believed could help other souls evolve and grow. He said that truth, when it arrives, doesn't require aggressive defense. It simply exists. Therefore, he never made dramatic speeches or tried to force anyone to believe. He shared what he'd seen with humility and respect for individual choice. Today, decades later, his words continue to resonate, especially among people who sense their own transition approaching. This isn't because he provided definitive answers to every question about existence. It's because he opened space for a new way of approaching life's end, with curiosity rather than terror, with understanding rather than denial. For people who have lived fully, witnessed tremendous changes, experienced loss and gain, tied and untied countless emotional knots, perhaps all they want at the end is exactly this: some truth, spoken with respect and genuine care. That's what Cayce offered throughout his life. Not promises or guarantees, but perspectives. Not rigid dogmas, but possible paths forward. In concluding this long-hidden interview, he stated that nothing is more liberating than understanding that consciousness is eternal. This phrase, spoken with deep serenity, continues to comfort people facing the inevitable. He didn't expect anyone to start celebrating death, but he hoped they might approach it with understanding, with reduced fear, with greater acceptance of the natural cycle. For elderly people carrying the accumulated weight of a lifetime, perhaps this is the ultimate lesson. You don't need to have all the answers. It's enough to be at peace with the questions and to trust that the journey continues beyond what your physical eyes can see. With each new day, consciousness prepares, learns, and strengthens itself. When the moment of departure finally arrives, it doesn't travel alone or lost. It continues, supported by everything that was built with authentic love and genuine care. If this message has touched something deep within you, consider sharing it with someone who needs to hear this perspective. And if these ideas resonate with your own journey, subscribe to continue receiving content that honors the profound questions of existence. There's something deeply human about wanting to understand where we go when everything familiar ends. Perhaps that's why Cayce's words continue crossing generations and touching hearts. He didn't describe a prefabricated paradise or threaten eternal punishment. He simply spoke of continuity, a place where each soul continues evolving, learning, and reuniting with those it has loved. This understanding alone can revolutionize how we see life. For those approaching the end, it offers serenity. For those with time remaining, it provides an invitation to transformation, to live with more truth, more affection, more genuine listening to what matters most. Because ultimately, that's what we carry forward. Cayce reminds us that life's end doesn't have to be a moment of anguish or terror. It can be a passage filled with meaning, and nobody has to face this passage alone. There's always a presence, a memory, a love waiting on the other side with the same tenderness with which we say goodbye from here. Those who have felt the unmistakable presence of a loved one even after their death understand that something exists beyond what physical senses can perceive. Cayce simply confirmed what many hearts already knew. The bonds between souls don't dissolve at death. They transform, deepen through longing, illuminate through gratitude. Elderly people, with their accumulated wisdom and experience, understand this better than anyone. They've lived through departures, farewells, and silences that only time can properly translate into meaning. Cayce's message doesn't serve as empty consolation. It functions as a bridge between rational thought and authentic hope. He didn't romanticize death, but he didn't fear it either. He saw it as a natural part of existence's cycle. In sharing his visions, he left something precious, the possibility of looking at life's end with less fear and more respect. Each word seems to remind us that dying isn't disappearing. It's simply continuing. And continuing with dignity is what every soul deserves, regardless of how it has lived or what it has experienced. Death, according to Cayce, is not an abyss that swallows everything. It's a bridge that carries consciousness forward. Each of us will cross this bridge at the right time, in our own unique way, carrying everything we've lived with genuine love. May you walk with lightness during your remaining days. And may you, when your time comes, recognize in the silence the embrace of those who await your arrival. Because according to Edgar Cayce's most profound revelation, no one departs alone, no one gets lost. And true love, the kind we build and share here, is what guides us all toward where we're ultimately going.